Geordies and Nottingham Forest fans, because I know there is a few that have subscribed. So welcome to your match preview. Newcastle taking on Nottingham Forest this Sunday, 2 p.m. at St James's Park. This game is actually fascinating because we've played twice already this season at the City Ground. Newcastle have won both, but both are coming off a loss and they're both looking to achieve the same thing this season. UEFA Champions League football. It sounds so bloody good to say Newcastle United and Nottingham Forest in the same sentence with UEFA Champions League football. And I can't lie, I need to be true to myself. I've been a big fan of how Nottingham Forest have just exceeded all expectations this season. I've found them absolutely a joy to watch. So we are going to talk a little bit about what to expect from Nottingham Forest and also how Newcastle United can beat them. And then I'm going to do a predicted 11. So if you are new here, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on another episode. And I will also be doing a review after the game. But like I mentioned before, I've been a huge fan of what I've seen from Nottingham Forest this season because we're in an era where everybody wants to keep possession, be nice and tidy and technical on the ball, but Nottingham Forest have just been absolutely devastating on the counter-attack, and they're a team that play to their strengths. They've pretty much ripped up the modern scrapbook and play to their strengths, and that's what I love about Nottingham Forest. Counter-attacking with pace, power, directness. They're actually the quickest and most direct team in the Premier League this season, second on Bournemouth, and we all know what happened against Bournemouth, so we need to be wary of this. And I love what Nottingham Forest do when they're in possession, setting up triggers into attacking numbers. So what you'll often see is them moving the ball into midfield, whether that be Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White. Once that ball reaches them, you'll see like darts of arrows just getting forward. You'll see Anthony Elanga getting on his bike, Callum Hudson-Odoi, if he's fit and plays, getting on his bike. And then you'll have Chris Wood being the poacher in the box. So they've got a nice blend about their team. And I love just how Nuno set them up to express himself. They can attack and transition in many different ways. They've got excellent ball carriers, progressive ball carriers in Callum Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga. And then they've got people that are extremely clever on the ball, like Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson. So they don't just punish you by carrying the ball and being direct. They can find a pass as well and they can play a little. Nottingham Forest have been excellent this season, is defending, especially in their numbers. They're compact, they're disciplined, and they're very well organised. So it's going to have to take a large amount of energy from Newcastle to break them down. Nottingham Forest have conceded the third least amount of goals in the Premier League this season with 29. Even if we take a quick look at the Premier League table, Nottingham Forest doing an excellent job sitting in third, 47 points. Look, they've only conceded 29 goals, scored 41 goals, and then you've got Newcastle United sitting just outside European places in seventh on 41 points, so there's only 6 points between us. Newcastle have conceded 33 goals and scored one more than Nottingham Forest with 42. Now, this is a game where both sets of fans are expecting a reaction after defeats last weekend. I expect this game where Newcastle United will have the majority of the possession because Nottingham Forest are actually bottom of the Premier League table for possession per 90 with only 40.2%. So I do expect Newcastle United to dictate the game, dictate the flow of the game, but Nottingham Forest are happy with that. They're happy to sit in a low block, invite you on, and that's their cunning plan of creating space to attack in numbers. Now, if you take a look at this image on the screen here, and I've highlighted where Nottingham Forest are, they don't pressure the ball until they're deep in their own half. 34% of their pressure, which is the highest out of any Premier League club in their own defensive third. So I'm fully expecting Nottingham Forest to stick to their game plan, sit back, invite Newcastle on, and then looking to catch them on the counter attack. And the way they do this is once the opposition wins back possession, Nottingham Forest set up in a 3-4-3 formation and look to close the space. And if they don't win possession back early enough, they set up in a 4-4-2 just to be more structured. And I honestly believe this will be a very, very tough game. Nottingham Forest have built a very balanced squad. When you look at their centre-backs, they've got Milenkovic, who's the duel winner, who's the aggressive one. Then they've got Murillo, who likes to clear up and use his pace. And when they're attacked, they've got ball carriers such as Anthony Elanga, Callum Hudson-Odoi. But then they've also got that maverick, that genius on the ball, such as Elliot Anderson, who can keep the ball in tight spaces. Morgan Gibbs-White, who's got that vision, got that creativity in the final third. And then they've got their goal scorer, Chris Wood, who we all know, we can see it now, right? Elliot Anderson just feeding Chris Wood. Chris Wood, one-on-one with our goalkeeper, and he just dinks it over and putting Nottingham Forest 1-0 up. I can see it now, a repeat of last season, but we cannot allow that to happen. We need to be aggressive. We need to play, bring our intensity back, because if we play like we did against Manchester City, then we'll lose this game. Because I think going into this game, if we had enough bodies, you could pretty much drop every single player. We were that passive, that disinterested, that disorganized. We weren't great against Manchester City. So I'm expecting a reaction. I kind of feel like Manchester City were there to be beaten. Nottingham Forest are there to be beaten because we've done it before. Against Manchester City, we were the architect of our own downfall. We just looked so passive. We weren't winning first balls. We weren't winning second balls. We weren't tracking runners. Manchester City just found it easy to play through it. And I think if we act like that against Nottingham Forest will punish us. So how do Nottingham Forest, what do they do defensively? Well, they prioritise defending central areas and they look to mark space rather than a man-to-man press. They do this so you can't play through the lines. And when you do, they've always got a bank of four ready to break when they win back possession. And what they do is force you out wide, and they trust their fullbacks in one-on-one situations out wide. So I kind of feel like it'll be a similar game to what we had at the City ground, where the game was won and lost in the midfield. We need a similar performance. Bruno and Tonali have a big role to play in this, because they need to stop Nottingham Forest's triggers and capitalise on winning the ball back and moving the ball quickly. I thought against Manchester City, we weren't quick enough in possession. We need to speed that up, because if we're passive and very slow in possession, that'll allow Nottingham Forest to get back into their shape where they're happy defending. When we do win back possession, let's utilise the space out wide with overlapping fullbacks to create scoring opportunities. Plenty of movement, plenty of interchanging between forwards, because that'll make us less predictable, mixing up our patterns, attacks and movements to try and draw their players out of positions in order to create gaps to exploit. And that's what it's all about, how you break down a low block. If you're static and very positional in your attack, then they're just going to find it easy to win duels and be aggressive and read the game, and we need to move them out of their position to create space to exploit, and that's how you break down a low block. So I want to see Anthony Gordon coming inside, utilising the channels. I want to see Alexander Isak dropping deep and then spinning in behind. Just lots of movement just to confuse their backline, because if you're static and your attacks are predictable, Nottingham Forest will just eat them up all day. What we did excellently at the City ground is when we were attacking, we closed the space between our midfield. So our midfields pressed their midfield. That meant that if Nottingham Forest won the ball back, they weren't able to play through the lines quickly, because what they want to do is just distribute it to the midfield and then play it out wide. That's what they want to do. So if we can pressurize their midfield while we're attacking, and then we can snatch the ball back on their first touch. And this is why it's imperative that we'll bring back our intensity, because our intensity will block their triggers and patterns of play and nullify their attack. Everybody knows Newcastle operate better in open spaces where we can be direct, use our pace. This is why we're better when teams come on to us, like Arsenal, like Liverpool, like United, etc. We just need to be more clever in how we break down low blocks. If a centre-back's marking you tightly, why don't you go out wide a little bit? Just create some space in the middle for deep runners. But this game is fascinating because Nottingham Forest will try and force us to play differently. They'll try and force us to be passive in possession. Newcastle aren't very good when we're passive in possession. And I'm going to say it now, I actually want Nottingham Forest to qualify for Champions League, but not at Newcastle expense. So I'm happy Nottingham Forest to win every other game but this one. So getting on to the starting 11, I think this is what Eddie Howe will go with. I kind of wouldn't be surprised to see Nick Pope going back in, because I thought Dubravka had a shocker against Manchester City. We needed to freshen it up a little bit, but I would definitely bring Tino back in at right back. One, because he made an impact when he came on against City. Two, because Trippier was awful against City. And three, because he's got more pace than Trippier to keep up with Nottingham Forest's pace. And if Botman's fit, I would definitely bring him back in. I think he's our best centre-back, both on the ball and off the ball. And I just feel a lot more calm when he's in that back line. When you think about it, against Arsenal, Tottenham, when he first come back from injury, he was excellent. So I'm hoping he's fit and ready to play. And then alongside him, Dan Burn and Lewis Hall at left back. Then the obvious two in midfield, Sandro Tonali and Bruno. I think these two need to step up, because Manchester City, they were non-existent. So I want to see a better performance, and I expect a better performance from the both of them. And if there's one player I want to see come back in, it's Lewis Miley. absolutely has to start. I thought he was our best player against Manchester City, despite only playing the second half. And he's going to give us a lot more control and better use of the ball because he moves the ball a lot better than what Joe Willock does. He's defensively a lot better than what Joe Willock is, and he's got better vision on the ball. So with us expecting to have more possession, we need players that are cool, calm, composed in tight areas, and with a better passing range. And again, I want to see a lot more from our front three. I don't mind them having a bad game, misplacing passes, but if the intention and the energy's there, that's all I ask for. And I expected a better showing against Manchester City because City have been extremely vulnerable defensively. So I did expect Gordon to get on a bit more and have a go at Rico Lewis and try and run in behind them. So I want to see that from Anthony Gordon, and I want to see a little bit more quality from Alexander Isak than what we're seeing against Manchester City. But I definitely do expect a reaction from Nottingham Forest, but also Newcastle United. And I think it's imperative that we win because we cannot lose 3 on the bounce, especially with Liverpool away next week. We need to start building some winning momentum going into that cup final. So I think this is actually a make or break game for our season, in my opinion, because not only will it allow us to build up some winning momentum, but it'll also shorten the gap to 3 points to Nottingham Forest in third. So if our boys can't get up for this game, then we're not going to get up for any game for the rest of the season. But look, I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know your predictions of the game in the below. And also, what would your starting 11 be? Is there anything you disagree with or agree with during this video? Let me know in the comments below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Nottingham Forest fans, good luck for the rest of the season, apart from this Sunday. And like always, away the lads.